also with like the
Sorry,
press
go
conference
for it.
that they had yesterday, I think that the beat reporters did not do a sufficient job in grilling both Boone and Cashman about decisions made in the ALCS, about pitching changes and things like that. It seemed like they were kind of walking on eggshells to avoid that conversation. Um,
It was really weird.
yeah,
Like, we just had this whole conversation about the ALCS, right? All the quotes from Boone and Cash, like, we're talking about trades and contract and stuff. And like, we kind of integrated that into the episode. But about the management, I don't know. You think of the people who ask those questions in the room that they didn't do it. I mean, Meredith sometimes gets on it. Meredith wasn't asking any questions from what I heard. I know Sweeney Murdy was all over him. He
Sweeney,
was the one who was actually giving Cash some sass back.
I liked that a lot. Sweeney definitely pulled the most punches, or didn't pull the most punches out of anyone. He was going after Cashman and like
Yeah,
applying a little bit of pressure, which I think was necessary to like get a rise and just show that he had some emotion about this season. At least at minimum, like you get that kind of silver
yeah,
lining, but at the same time, it's like you have so many opportunities right there. You're in the room with them, and there are a lot of question marks that the fan
yeah.
base has not received proper answers to. And now that those games are no longer fresh, you could have gotten even more out of them, and for whatever reason, failed to do that. So that was just really irritating to me.
Yeah, I wonder who was there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I,
I've seen
I'll go
Hoke
back
was
and like
covering the World
rewatch.
Series in Philly. I
Oh,
imagine
that's
he
true.
was. Yeah. So yeah, Hoke was there, but like Philly's close. I imagine he went back to New York for that press conference. I mean, he's on the Yankees beat,
Yeah,
but I think he works for MLB.com. I know Lindsay Adler is off the beat now,
yeah, she left. She's working with.
which I love Lindsay Adler's articles. I'm
Yeah,
gonna miss her.
I also just like didn't like how when Boone was asked about how like if he ever felt like he was afraid of getting fired or anything like that, he said not at all. Um, so it's just like it sounded like he had perpetual job immunity or like job stability, like no matter what happened. Like that should have never been the case. Like truthfully, he should have been kind of shitting his pants when they started to falter in that crazy stretch because they were on pace to be the greatest team ever, and they ended up like having a disappointing season at the end of the day. So
Yeah, I work my job. I'm a process improvement engineer. The amount of times in a day that I hear the word process is overwhelming. And Cashman upset me yesterday with how often he was saying process. And in terms of a performance improvement mindset, I understand judging things based on process and not always results, right? The unfortunate part is in baseball, it's a results driven game. You're in the business of results, and we're seeing that the process, even if the process is sound, like they're talking about their staff getting recruited elsewhere, like we know the Yankees
mm-hmm.
analytics team are good at data analytics, right? Or at least in accruing data, getting data that's useful. But we're seeing that this process is not conducive to being the best team. Like it's not like the Yankees at any point. The Yankees in '09 were start to finish the best team. I think in 2010 and 2011, the Yankees were probably the best team in baseball that fell short in playoff situations. Like it was close. The Yankees and since then, I mean, I can't even say Boone's tenure. It was also the end of Girardi. Have not been the best team in baseball like any season. Like even when they had
Yeah.
the 100-win season, like the Astros have been
And
better,
in
the
2017,
Dodgers have been better.
yeah,
And to not look at your process and be like, there's something awry with our process, with how we do things. Like
mm-hmm.
it, it's really frustrating. Like you're
It's
doing the same
negligence.
thing and
It's fucking
expecting a different
negligence,
result.
and it's overlooking your blind spots. I mean, at least in 2017, you could say with Girardi, like maybe I don't know, he could have deserved to be fired, but at the same time, he brought a team that wasn't supposed to perform that well all the way to Game 7 against the cheating Astros team and got fired. Meanwhile, Boone
Yep.
has lost it how many years in a row now and underperformed with a supposedly like stacked roster, and he has all the job security in the world. Like things like that just don't make sense to me. I'm not saying that Girardi didn't deserve to be fired, but I'm also saying that like Aaron Boone like deserves to have his job security questioned just as much because of this process that is severely flawed.
And it's exactly. And like it's a bit condescending even to have this mindset. Like I don't even necessarily blame Boone because I don't think a
No,
lot of his decisions are his decisions. And I know he's gone on at nauseum on the K show about like the structure, how he makes the final decision, and I agree. And I think, I mentioned that before. We saw that when he took IKF out of the lineup in the CS. Like he was when he was playing Peraza because he was like, I'm done. Like he can't make these errors. Um, so if you're going to, and Sweeney asked this yesterday, there's Sweeney asking the only good questions. What accountability does the
yeah,
decision making team, the analytics team have, right? And Cashman brushed it off. He said they're good at what they do. I'm going to judge them on process and
that's
not
not how
results.
you
Well,
fucking win games.
that's
Like that's not how you. Yeah.
it's baseball. Like I understand. I work in healthcare. I understand that they're like different things. Like humans are human, right? Like there's things that get awry where the process can be put in shape and you can get a variation of results. You can get unlucky.
No.
The Yankees didn't get unlucky this year. They didn't get unlucky. They had injuries. That happens every time. So like you build depth and you have your management. Like we look at two of the worst bullpens in going into a World Series the last few years. The Braves, the bullpen was not a positive for them going into last postseason. They won the World Series. They became great. And the Phillies, their bullpen has been great because Rob Thompson is putting their pitchers in
Yep.
situations to win. And they've been gamers.
Looking at
They've been
Ranger
great. They've gone out
Suarez,
and
how
got
good
it.
he's been.
But like, yeah. And it's because they have a plan, you can tell, but you can
No,
also tell they're not sticking to their plan like
they're able to make
by the T.
on the fly adjustments that the Yankees failed. It almost felt like it's like my way or the highway. Like we're sticking out, we're dying on this hill. It's like that doesn't work a lot of the time,
Yeah.
especially when you already have a systematically flawed ideology that's like leading the way for you.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It was a really bad attitude at the presser. I mean, I don't think there's a, a caller on the K show, or someone tweeted to the K show because Michael gets in and he he grills the Yankees and they always kick off the episode whenever there's or the radio
Yeah,
show, whatever, whenever there's a presser like this. But Peter, who's not a baseball guy, he said basically, when the Yankees lose, we're gonna react like this, right? So Peter was like, what could they have said that would have made Yankees fans happy? Like, are they
yeah,
mad at the presser? Or are they mad at the season? And just taking it out on the presser. And a really smart guy on Twitter, that's an oxymoron, tweeted into the K show, and he was like, some level of accountability of the that their process is flawed. They have faith in what they've done, but it seems like they dance. They're like convinced they're doing things right, and their players are underperforming or they're getting unlucky, and it's really like some level of like we're gonna reevaluate how we do things, how we make roster decisions, how we make lineup decisions, and bullpen management. And there was no accountability of that, and I think that's what Yankees
yeah.
fans
No,
wanted,
absolutely.
and it's not what
Just
we got.
some kind of being like, hey, we fucked up. This is like what we're gonna do to change. Don't have to get too
Yeah,
specific with it, but like the fans just want to see some kind of optimism where they feel like they can make strides to improve rather than just saying everything is fine and like the way that it is, nothing's broken. When clearly things are broken.
yeah.
Yep,
And I'll,
I
and
agree.
I'll tell you this. This is sorry. Oh. And like going through work, we always talk about this. How we have a process first mindset, not a person first mindset. We can talk about Cash and Boone, um, and I guess it would change if Cash were to change. But no, we
Yeah,
can talk about firing Boone. If we fire Boone and keep Cashman, like it's if the Yankees process, if they're confident in it and the decision making angle is the same. You can put different people in there with different philosophies. I think Buck Showalter is the Yankees manager. I don't think he would take.
no.
I don't think he would take the job in the current structure.
Mm-hmm.
But if he was, I don't think it would be much different. The results, like it's not. and I don't want to diminish just Boone's impact, but you talk to players, like the manager doesn't do a ton, and especially the way that the Yankees empower the manager to do things. I
Yeah,
think Boone has more power than like Dave Roberts does. Um, but if you're gonna change, if we're gonna change the manager, we're gonna change the hitting coaches and stuff. If the cogs are gonna run the same way underneath it, it doesn't matter
true.
what the frame of the car looks like, you know. So it has to be an organizational shift, which we're far from. So it's either we invest in players that are more consistent, and we get deeper, and we just put together that salary to make this thing better, make it good enough, or a big change. I don't think that big change is coming as long as Cashman's at the helm. And not that that's a good or a bad thing, but there's no
Yeah.
accountability or
I just
no
don't see them
change
ever
incoming.
going for the full rebuild with this current regime. Um, and I think that Howell is just very,
Yeah.
very complacent and completely fine with the way that things look right now, which is one of the reasons they're in this predicament right now.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, yeah, it doesn't leave the fans with much speculation in the sense that there are so many options that, like, ways the Yankees will realistically go with their decisions this offseason. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
plenty of common sense things that the Yankees can change right now that makes sense to the fans, but the like reality of the situation is the Yankees themselves don't see those as issues. So I mean, I just hope that they actually shell out the money for the proper free agents beyond just Judge. So, like, you
Yep.
can't just re-sign Judge, re-sign Rizzo, and call it a postseason or call it an offseason. You have to make more moves on top of that to build a well-rounded roster.